Hey everybody, it's Daryl with Motivation Through Recovery, and I'm asking the question today, what's your story? What's your story? Do you know when it comes to our recovery, one of the most powerful tools we have is our story. Even in sales training, they used to tell us all the time is that facts tell, but stories sell. What's your story? I want to describe to you three things that your story does that serves as a benefit to you and to others. Number one, the thing your story does is that it brings comfort to other people who are in the battle of recovery. You know, it's important to realize that people, when they hear your story, it can promote change in their life. I remember there was a situation one time in a treatment center years ago where there was a young man who was there to do his intake to come into the program, and he made his mind up that he was all of a sudden going to leave. Several people tried to talk to him, staff, even some of the clients that were in there tried to talk to him. But as he got ready to walk out the door, there was this one gentleman who actually was coming in to work his shift. And he said, listen, before you go, can I tell you something real quick? And he didn't know what else to say to him, so he started telling him his story about how his use led him to incarceration, how it led him to losing all kind of things, how he was doing these things and it was hurting his life. And this young man started listening to what this guy was saying. But more importantly, it brought comfort, it brought peace to this young man. And it also gave him the thought process that if he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So that young man wound up finishing the program, and then later on, about 2 or 3 years later, wound up becoming staff in this program, adding to now his own story. So stories are very, very powerful things that you have at your possession. The second thing a story does for you, it brings personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. Listen, when you have a good story to share with somebody about how you've overcome your addiction, it brings personal responsibility to you because now you feel you need to share with other people in order to make sure you stay right. Okay? One of my favorite stories is a young man who actually had 19 years of sobriety on his belt. And we were actually celebrating this young man. And in the process of celebrating this young man, I had a chance to ask him, what kept you straight for 19 years? And all of a sudden, tears began to well up in his eyes. And he said, Daryl, I got to tell you the honest truth. He said, the only reason why I stayed straight for 19 years is because I never wanted another man to sleep with my wife or raise my children. And I said, please explain. He told me that the last time he messed up, his wife had changed the locks on the door. He came to the door, couldn't get in. She came outside with a bag with his stuff in it and told him, here's the deal. You need to get into treatment. You need to get into treatment and you need to do it on your own. We're not going to support you. You're not going to see the kids or any of these things until you get the help you need. If you want this marriage, you got to prove you want this marriage by going and get the help you need to be a part of this family. So he went into an inpatient 45-day treatment program, I believe it was. And every day he was there, he thought about that very statement his wife said. And he thought about that and he incorporated it into his own. He wrote down on a 5x7 card, I never want another man to sleep with my wife or raise my children. Which means if he would have went back to using, he'd have been out of the picture. So he realized that, and now that became part of his story. And that story holds him accountable to what it is that he's here to do. So anytime he ever feels like even thinking about messing up, he always goes back to the fact that part of the story where he never wanted another man to sleep with his wife or raise his children. What's your story? Your story is very powerful. It's very good at holding you accountable. The third thing that your story does, it empowers others to tell their story. Because other people, sometimes they feel embarrassed by telling their story because they feel it's just something that people either A, wouldn't be interested in, or B, that other people wouldn't understand what they've been through. But see, that's exactly why people miss out, because you have a story and people need to know your story, because the story that they hear that comes from you, that's meant to come from you, is the very thing that's going to take them out of their situation, get them delivered out of the mess they're in. And they'll never get delivered out of their mess until they hear your story. Facts tell, but stories sell. You got to make sure that you share your story every chance you get, because not only does it hold you accountable, not only does it bring comfort to others, but it empowers others to tell their story as well. What's your story? Drop a comment below and let us know what your story is. What is your story that keeps you held accountable? What's your story that you share with others to help them get out of the addiction that so easily binds them? Like a good friend of mine, Patrick Meneboom, said, is that if you don't tell your story, you're holding up the line. If you don't tell your story, you're holding up the line. You are robbing somebody from being able to tell their story. I'm Daryl with Motivation Through Recovery. Remember, you are somebody and you do matter.